So we're walking around and I'm knitting away as we're looking at all the animals and whatever. And I finish the sock and I get to the toe and all right, I'm going to do my toe decreases. And I got my toe decrease and I'm like, I wonder if I can Kitchener this. I don't have a needle. So I did. My name is Michelle, and this is Michelle's Fiber Studio podcast. Today is Monday, August 3rd, and this is episode number 102. Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back. I'm back from a 2-week hiatus. I went to New York City. We had a great time. I'll tell you all about that later. A couple of things off of the top. I treated myself while I was in the city, and I now have a microphone. So I'm hoping that the sound is a little bit nicer. Please let me know what you think, and hopefully it stays in sync and all of that. This is my trial run, so we'll see how this goes. I do have my windows open, so you might hear a little bit of road noise. I've pulled the blinds down, hopefully to soften the light so the lighting will stay a little better, but I do have the windows open. It's low 70s, but it is actually quite muggy. It was raining really quite a bit this morning, and I think we got a little bit more rain coming in. The last thing that I wanted to talk about kind of at the top of the episode is I would really like to start to add a new segment to the podcast. I would love to answer questions. So if you have any questions that you would like me to answer, whether it is about knitting or personal questions, if they're not too personal, I'm happy to answer them, or things like that. I have been knitting for, 35 years or so. I feel like I'm a fairly prolific knitter. I am definitely a stronger knitter than a crocheter, but I am happy to do my best to answer questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will see what I can find out. And if not, we can maybe crowdsource the answer too. So please drop your questions down below in the comments, and I will answer them on the next episode of the podcast. I have so much to talk about today. This is going to be a long one. I'm not even going to apologize. So settle in, get yourself something cold to drink or warm, whatever your preference is. Grab your knitting, because I think it's 4 finished objects to talk about, believe it or not. I have updates on a couple of other projects. I have lots of new yarn that I came home with. And I will talk a little bit about my week in New York City. So I think with that, let's start by taking a look at my blocking board. Editing Michelle here. I just wanted to apologize. I realized as I was watching back the footage that the lighting really is pretty wonky this week. I got to figure something out, but as I move and adjust, the camera kind of shifts in and out of light and dark patches. So I apologize. I hope it is not too distracting, and I will do my best to fix it for next week. Know where to begin. I have, like I said, 4 projects that I have finished in the last 2 weeks. 3 of them in like the last 4 days, I guess, 3 days. So it has been a very busy time around here. How about I start with the one that I finished first? So before I left on vacation, you may or may not recall, my goal was to finish my blue gradient socks, and I did. I finished them on the 23rd, which was the day before we left, the Thursday before we left. And they came out really, really good. I think I managed to line up the colors pretty darn close. Yeah, so I'm really happy with these. Let me give you my details. So the yarn was Lane de Nord Paint Gradient Sock in, I think it's a color number. Color number 23. And I have two, I didn't write it down, but this is the yarn that I have left over. These two balls that are approximately, I would say they're about 20 grams a piece. And that makes sense because this is a 100-gram skein. It usually takes me about 65 grams to knit a sock, a pair of socks. I did knit these a little bit longer, about an inch longer than I typically would, because these may end up becoming a gift. They may or may not. I may keep them. I may gift them. I don't know. But most of the people in my life to whom I would gift them have bigger feet than me because I am tiny. So what I ended up having to do, and I can't remember if I had already talked about, I probably did because I think I had cast on the second sock, I think, in the last episode, is I had to wind off one of these balls. I had to wind off to get back to the lightest color so that I could cast on and start the second sock. So that was my question when I first got these. I wasn't sure how that striping was going to work to make two identical pairs of socks, but that is how it is. So I knit my socks from the cuff down 95% of the time. I usually use size 0 needles. I like to knit on 2 circular needles. And when I get to my heel, I like to do the OMG heel by Megan Williams. It is a short row heel. It has a little teeny heel flap, and then you do the short row heel. And I love the heel. I think it fits me quite well. I have it totally memorized, and it only takes me maybe 15 or 20 minutes to do the heel, the gusset in the heel turn. Like, I can do a heel really pretty quickly. So I stick with it because it's a really fast one. So I think that is everything on these socks. This is yarn that I got in June when I was at the Fiber Frolic. We had actually stopped at the yarn shop in Waterville. And so I'm feeling really pretty good because this is yarn that is basically did not live in my stash. It became socks right away. So that is project number 1. Project number 2 is my New York City socks. Love these socks. So it has become a tradition of mine. Here, I'll show you the socks. It has become a tradition of mine to knit a pair of socks when we spend the week with my daughter, and I take them around on the subway, and as we walk around the city and wherever we go, I take them with me. Pretty much that's the only time I'm working on them is when we're out. I did pick them up a little bit when we had some downtime in the hotel or at her apartment, but really not a whole lot. And what I like to do is I like to use yarn that I have gotten previously when I was in the city. So this year's yarn is by Humade. I do believe it is a local New York dyer. It is the twist, and the colorway is Sagrada Familia. This is yarn that I picked up, I think it was 2023 when we visited. I got it at Nitty City, which is on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And so I knit these. I cast them on we left on a Friday, the 24th. I cast them on in the bus as we were heading out of Maine. And I knit the entire cuff on the bus, and then I set them aside, and then I just picked them up wherever we went. And I have to tell you, I'm really proud of myself because on Wednesday, I still was on the first sock. And I got a lot done on the leg on Monday. We stopped at, B&H, actually. It's a big photography technology store. It's where I got my microphone. That was actually the whole reason we went there. But once we picked out the microphone, I left it with my husband and allowed him time. He's a techie guy. And I said, here, you go explore like an hour, whatever. It was just him and I. My daughter, I think, had a doctor's appointment Monday morning. And so we were on our own until she didn't meet up with us until 3:30 in the afternoon. So we had pretty much a good chunk of the day. So we went to B&H, and I said, I'm just going to go sit in it's like a foyer. It's right by the exit, and they have a whole bunch of chairs. And there was a bunch of people that kind of came and went, but he was like an hour. And so I got I got just about the entire leg done. But anyway, the rest of it it was still Wednesday and I hadn't quite finished it. So we went to the Bronx Zoo on Wednesday, and I'm kind of going to dip in and out of our vacation as I'm talking about projects. I can't help it. But at the zoo, I still had, I don't know, maybe like this much of the foot left. And so we're walking around and I'm knitting away as we're looking at all the animals and whatever. And I finish the sock and I get to the toe and all right, I'm going to do my toe decreases. And I got my toe decrease and I'm like, I wonder if I can Kitchener this. I don't have a needle. So I did. And I don't know which one. They're pretty dang close. See, hopefully that's focusing. Can you see any difference? I think the one on the bottom might be the one I did at the zoo. So what I did is I broke my yarn and then I used my needle to just thread my yarn. So, you know, I know the Kitchener as you got your back needle. Okay, back needle and front needle so that you guys can see it, right? And so on the front needle, you do knit, purl, and then on the back needle, purl, knit. And the knit stitch you slip off, and on the back needle, the purl stitch you slip off, right? So knit, purl, purl, knit. So that's the angle that you are threading your tapestry needle through. So I just had to make sure that I threaded the yarn through using my knitting needle to like pull it through the loop in the direction that the tapestry needle would be going. So I, as if to knit, and then as if to purl, and then on the back side. So back and forth. And I totally did it. I was so proud of myself. We were walking through, I think it was a bird exhibit at the time. And then not only did I Kitchener the toe, I was able to cast on, I measured off my yarn, cast on for the second sock, and got almost the whole cuff done the rest of the time that we were in the zoo. So I was pretty pleased with myself that I was able to do all of that while on the move and walking and kind of improvising. So I kept working on them, and then I finished the last of the foot and the toe in the bus as we headed north back to Maine on Saturday. So these are my New York City socks. I haven't blocked them. I probably won't because I don't usually block my socks. I don't think it much matters, frankly. So, but I love them and I love the colors. They're so much fun. So then yesterday, once we got home and settled and after church and all that, I decided to take my leftovers and I cast on a yarn cozy. So that's the other kind of tradition that I have started building is after I have knit my New York City socks, I knit myself a yarn cozy because then I kind of can relive all of that. I only wear my socks, of course, in the wintertime and here and there, but my yarn cozies I'm using all the time as I knit. So I cast this on last night while we were watching TV. I got the entire bottom part done. And then this morning, after I ate breakfast, but I was doing a bunch of reading, I knit the rest of it. And my yarn cozy is done too. This is a pattern by Knitty Natty, I should say. And the yarn, I already showed you. The yarn is a humid yarn, and I still have that much. I would say it's probably 25 grams. I haven't weighed it yet, but I know the yarn cozies take about 18 or so grams. Like I said, my socks are about 65 grams. So that would be 65, 20, 85. Yeah. So it's probably about 20, 23 grams of yarn, somewhere in there. So that's that project. All right. The last project I really am so excited to have done. I haven't blocked it yet, but one of my projects you may recall that I wanted to bring with me was the goat cowl. It is a pattern by Laura Dobratz, and it has been on my wish list for a long time. I don't even know how long. And I bought a kit. It's Emma's Yarns is the kit. And it is the Harbor color kit. It's her practically perfect smalls. Those are the colors. And this is a kit, again, I got at the yarn shop in Waterville, not this year, but last year. And it was one of the things that I wanted to get done. So I got it done. I love it. So you hold the yarn double, so it's a DK weight, but it is so squishy. And I would put it on, but A, it's rather warm, and B, I'm not sure what that will do to my microphone. So you'll have to just trust me. But I am super happy. You hold it double, so you start and you knit a certain amount with the first color and then held together. And then you introduce the second color, and then you knit until the first color runs out, and then you add the third color to where the first color ran out, and you keep going back and forth. So I did use a magic knot to join the two ends together, which is what Laura suggests. However, I wanted to make sure it was uber secure. And so I did the magic knot, which allowed me to just kind of basically keep knitting and not have to stop and fiddle and have the ends. But I did leave fairly long tails, and I wove those tails in as well. So hopefully it should do really well. I cast this on the bus. After I knit my cuff, I cast this on. And by the time I got to New York City, I think I was like to right about here. So I think I had done most of the first color. And then I pretty much sat. Actually, it did sit. I think I took it out once and I did like 2 rounds. I honestly, while we were in the city, didn't have a ton of knitting time that was not on the go knitting time. And that's okay. But this was not the project that I worked on when I did have knitting time. You'll see that one in a little bit. So I knit all the rest of this. So what, 80% of this, I knit on the way home on the bus. And when I got home, I had just introduced the last color. So you can see that is not very much of it. And I just finished that yesterday, a little bit before church. And then when we got home yesterday afternoon, after I finally had done laundry and vacuumed and went to the grocery store and all of the things you do when you return from vacation, I finished the last of it. And I think it was only like 1.5 inches or something. But it works up super fast, super fast. So it is knit, it is reverse stockinette stitch. So, I mean, you totally could flip it inside out, but it doesn't have quite the same feeling when it's this way, right? Your ribbing or those lines, they don't stand out quite the same way. Although it is pretty too in its own right. So you could knit it, some people will knit it like inside out so that you're knitting all the time. And I had thought about doing that, but I frankly couldn't quite figure out how to do it once I had started. And it really didn't annoy me to purl. Usually it does. And I don't know, I was using size 8 needles. So it worked up, it was a chunkier needle. I don't know, for whatever reason, it didn't bother me. And I just kept going. And I got so much done. And it's so squishy. And it's going to be a great, great cowl. I'm excited to wear this one and have this one off the needles. So with all those finished objects, I only have 2 works in progress to share with you. I think the first one I will talk about is this the Avenue Tea? I've totally lost track. Yeah, the Avenue Tea by Tori Yu. This is one that I was working on before I left for vacation, and I didn't get as much done as I had hoped. I kind of had a secret hope to finish it before I even left, and I did not. Actually, if I turn, well, this is the right side. Let me show you that. But then my marker is on the back, and actually, I have 2 markers. Why do I have 2 markers? I think I was trying to track how much I had done to encourage myself, but this is the progress, the show progress marker. So I was here, so I only got maybe 1 inch done on that before I left for vacation. I ended up focusing on the socks, and I decided that was a bigger priority for me, so that's what happened. But now that I'm home, I do want to shift my focus on this. This will become my main priority. And hopefully if I don't quite have it done by next week, hopefully it's really, really close. I am at the point where I am just working on the body. So that should be decently doable. You can see my sleeves are done. My collar is done. Yeah, let me talk about my yarn. So this is Bigfoot Yarn Company. in the Dolores colorway. This is also yarn that I got in Waterville back at the beginning of June. So it is another one that is getting worked up really quite quickly. And I still have a decent amount of my first skein. And then that is my second skein. I do believe I pulled from this one when I wanted to do my neckline and my sleeves. So I did use a little bit of that, but I am mostly still just working on the first skein. So it did get set aside for vacation, but now that we are home, it is going to get worked in earnest. It needs to be done mostly so I can wear it. And it's only the beginning of August, true. But I only have 3 weeks of summer, and I could wear this to school though. So I might be able to get away with wearing this into September. However, I will tell you, my building can be really hit or miss as far as temperature. So once I go back to school, I just don't see that it's going to get as much wear as it might if I was still home. So this will be thing number one that we focus on. The other project that is still a work in progress is the other one that I brought to New York City with me, and I brought my Soubrette. Remember that one? That is by Mary Annarella of Lyrical Knits. I began it back in the middle of February. I want to make sure I'm not losing any stitches here. And then I set it aside mid-March or so. So while I was in the city, I was able, this is where I was at last time, so I was able to finish all of the yoke, and I just barely split for the sleeves. I hope you can see that. And yeah, literally, I think I got one row done before I stopped. So this also needs to be done because I want to be able to wear that. This is going to be a great school sweater. So I do want to get this one done because I am excited to have it and to wear it to school. I am working on, this is my first skein here, and I still have a little bit left. I have my second skein ready to go. But where's my yarn tag? I am not sure where the tag is right this second. It's not in the bottom of it. I don't know. But the yarn is Illimani Sabri in Fawn. It is a cotton alpaca yarn. And I do know that I have shown this tag off before, and I promise I'll have it next time. So that is that project. I don't think I have anything specific that I need to talk about with that one. The other project that I might pull out this week is my Aura Lapghan. Now that I have finished the baby blankets, I don't have any crochet going. And sometimes it's nice to have, like, those are straight knitting, right? I also have my Musselburgh, which may end up coming into the rotation here and there a little bit. I am thinking about taking it walking with me because I could do that. But honestly, my Avenue T is going to be fine for Bible study because it's just knitting round and round and round. It'd be perfect for Bible study. So that's probably what I'm going to bring this week. But sometimes I just want something a little more interesting, just a little more engaging in my brain. So I might pull my Aura Lapghan out. It would be really great if I could get all of the hexes done before I head back to school in 3 weeks. I don't remember how deep into the project I am. I want to say there was 6 different sets of colors. Well, there's the blue, the green, the purple, and the browns, right? So 4 different sets of colors in different combinations. And I think I had gotten a set and a half done or something like that. Yeah, but it would be good. If I can get that done before I go back to school, I will feel really, really accomplished. And then I will just have to sew it up together. I honestly don't think that's going to be too bad, or crochet them together, honestly. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But at any rate, now I'm really starting to ramble. So how about we talk about, I do have another project plans, project dreams that I think I'm going to talk about. I wasn't going to talk about project dreams this week because I have so much other stuff to talk about. But I did buy some yarn, and it is very project specific. And I wanted to talk about the fact that I bought the yarn, and then it felt like, well, if I'm going to talk about the yarn, I need to talk about the project that I'm doing it for, right? So here we are. Here's my project dream section. So you might recall a couple of weeks ago, I had just finished the blanket, the little lap blanket for my best friend's daughter. And I brought it with me on Wednesday and before we left for vacation, and I gave it to her. And oh my goodness, it was the best reaction ever. She was so excited and gave me the biggest hug and was prancing around the house with it. And then took it with her. And then after Bible study, they had come back up. The kids were back up in the living room with us, and she was showing it off again. And then from across the room, her older brother, who is 11, I believe. I think he might be turning 12 in October. Anyway, her older brother, I hear him say, "Aunt Michelle, can you make me a blanket too?" Now, I had mentally prepared for this 100%. Actually, I was totally mentally prepared for this request. Wouldn't surprise me if the oldest, who is turning 15 in December, I believe, or 14. I don't think she's going to be driving yet. She's going into high school. At any rate, wouldn't surprise me if she puts in a request as well. And then they'll all have blankets from Aunt Michelle. But anyway, so I called him over, sat him down on the couch next to me. I'm like, well, I need a little break from blankets. However, how about I make you one for your birthday in October? So he thought that was a good idea. I asked him what colors he wanted, and he said he wanted orange and white. So I got the bee in my bonnet. Actually, I love project planning, and that's kind of the fun part, isn't it? So that night, Wednesday night, I started looking, and on Thursday, I had picked out a pattern by Thursday morning. I decided I am going to do the Singing Sea blanket by Joanna Lindahl. I think it's going to be a fun one. And so I went to Hobby Lobby. I was looking online at the yarns that they had and kind of just trying to see what maybe I could do. And I ended up going, and because the yarn was 30% off, so I'm like, okay, well, this is the sale week, so I'll just go grab it and set it aside. I'm not going to start it. I am not going to start it until end of August, probably beginning of September. It's tough because I have my Broadway show that I'm doing, Best of Broadway cover show kind of a thing that we're doing in the middle of September. I think the 11th, 12th, and 13th are the dates. I would love to put it off until after that, but that would only give me 3 weeks until his birthday, and I don't know if I want to wait quite that long. On the other hand, school's starting, so I don't know. We'll see, but I'm not starting at any rate for a little bit. But these are the colors that I chose. Yeah, bright orange, white, and then I added the taupe just to kind of temper it. I think it'll be fun. But it was tricky. So this is still Hobby Lobby, but I had to go with their Soft Secret line. And do they have color names? Yeah, this is taupe and white. And what's the orange called? Bright orange, hot orange, hot orange. Because the line in the Hobby Lobby that I usually like to use for blankets didn't have an orange. It had a rust, but it wasn't orange, and I knew he wanted orange. So I ended up and down the aisle trying to figure out what I was going to do. I had like a whole color scheme planned out in that other line, and then when I got there and I discovered it was really definitely more rusty than orangey, like it was definitely brown. This isn't going to work. So that's what we have. So this is my kind of a yarn shelf edition. Well, it is a yarn shelf edition, but we're putting it into this segment instead so I could show you the pattern. I think it'll be fun, and he will have an Aunt Shell blanket as well. Well, I have quite a few additions to my yarn shelf. This is the fun part of the yarn additions because this is my souvenir yarn, and I came home with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, 7, but 2 of them were gifts from my daughter. So 7 skeins of yarn. Anyway, so let's talk about them, shall we? How about I start with the yarn that my daughter gifted to me? So at the beginning of July, actually it was tail end of June, beginning of July, she and her husband did a cruise to Alaska. And so when I showed up, we got there and then we were visiting them in their apartment. She comes out of her bedroom and hands us, "Here, Mom, I got this for you while I was in Alaska." So she got me 2 skeins of this yarn here. Isn't it gorgeous? It is Juneau Woolies. And I don't know, I'm assuming, yeah, they're based in Juneau because that would only make sense, right? So Seward Street in Juneau, Alaska. I wonder if that is actually the yarn shop. Juneau Woolies is nestled on the beautiful Lapghan and I. Each skein is dyed by hand using a variety of techniques inspired by the mountains. So I'm betting that this is yarn that is dyed by the owner of the yarn shop. That would be my guess. And it is Cozy Toes. This is sock base. It is 75/25 superwash merino nylon. There's 437 yards, so it's in between. Like I've seen fingering weights with like 460 is kind of typical, and as little as like 400. I think that Humade yarn is 400. And does this one have a color name? Summer in, I wonder if that's Southeast Arkansas. It looks like S-E-A-K. Can you read that? Summer, and I think it's Summer in Southeast Arkansas because AK is the 2-letter code for Arkansas. So anyway, I have 2 skeins of this. It is going to make a fantastic shawl, wrap, something of that nature that I can wear to school. So very excited about this. The next bit of yarn that I picked up came from, we went to Argyle Yarn, a lovely little shop in Brooklyn. The owner was there. We were like the only ones in the store. Absolutely delightful, delightful, delightful. And she also dyes her own yarn. So this is Luminous Brooklyn, and a solar sock is her base. It is also 75/25. And this is a 463 skein, 463 yard skein. And Aurora is the color name. So this is probably going to be next year's socks. That was what I was after first. So also while I was in Argyle Yarns, I got myself some fun little notions as well. So the first thing, they're both from Cocoa Nuts. So this little tray here is magnetic. It is super cute. I think I have, is this magnetic? Yeah. So isn't that great? It's this great little tray. They have these round ones, they had cups, and then they had longer ones that were like, I don't know, probably like this big. My husband was encouraging me to get one of the longer ones, but I'm like, I don't really have room for it on my little table over here. So this is perfect. It can sit right there. It can catch all of my little notions and stitch markers. And then I got these beautiful scissors. How about if I hold them like this? Aren't they fun? There's a little story around why I ended up with so many notions, and I don't want to belabor it, but let's just say that there was a mishap and my husband felt really bad, and so I kind of had carte blanche, and we'll just leave it, we'll leave it at that. So then the next day, that was on Thursday, I think we went there. The next day we ended up going to Knitty City, which is right in Manhattan. And it actually had been a couple of years since I had been to Knitty City. And I had in my head, I'm like, I really don't need any more garment quantities of yarn. But I don't necessarily want to buy a whole bunch of single skeins. And I want to get some yarn. Like, my husband's in a good mood, so I need to capitalize on this. And so I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick out 3 skeins of yarn that I could put together into a 3 skein shawl. So that is what I did. So hopefully the light is picking up okay on these. So let me talk about them individually. This one here was kind of the first one that caught my eye. It is just, not just, but it is Malabrigo Ultimate Sock in the Gloria colorway. But I don't know, something about it, the dark speckles and the purples and the pinks and a little bit of the white, like it just caught my eye. So then I started playing with what I could put with it. And so the next one I decided on was this one here. It is Murky Depths Deep Sock. And I think I've done some of the Murky Depths. Matter of fact, one of my pairs of socks in past years was Murky Depths. And Bittersweet is the colorway. It is their deep sock. So I put those two together. I'm like, okay, I need one more. And I didn't want like a dark. So I ended up going with this one here. And this is Yarn Over New York and their Times Square sock yarn. I had knit my Manhattan Henge top out of that. And this is the Possibility colorway. So I don't know if that's after a cat or a dog, but it is Yarn Over New York. So I got a couple of New York yarns to go with my Malabrigo, and it's gonna make a fun shawl at some point. I don't know when. And then the last sock yarn I got was another Humade art yarn twist. And this is Homer at Sea. And so let me back it up. It's got the blues and the yellows. Actually, it kind of has similar vibes. Where'd it go? To this year's sock, doesn't it? It really does. Can you see that? So I'm probably gonna knit with this one next year, but I actually have two choices. And I do still have two skeins from previous years in blues. I tend to buy the same colors. Even when I try to push myself out of that color zone, I do it anyway. So, all right, it's getting a little dark, isn't it? Maybe I should turn a light on and maybe I'll lift that blind and see if that helps. But at any rate, let's talk about my trip to New York. I tried really hard to write down kind of like a bullet list of all the things that we did. And I know it was not that long ago, but oh my goodness, I had such a hard time thinking back. I'm like, what did we do? And when did we do it? And what did we do after that? And yeah, we had a fantastic trip though. We left on Friday the 23rd. We arrived in Manhattan pretty much right on time at 12:30. My daughter met us at the bus stop, and then we went to our hotel. No, actually, yeah, we went straight to our hotel. We were not able, no, we stopped and got lunch. See, I can't even remember. We did so many things. We stopped and got some lunch, and then we went to the hotel. We couldn't check in right away, so we left our luggage with them and then went to a coffee shop for a little while and then came back and were able to get into our room, and then we went to their apartment and hung out with them for the rest of the night. And it was so much fun. We walked an average of 18,000 steps, an average. Like some days were a little bit less, some days were a little bit more, and about 8.5 miles. Like it was so much walking. On Saturday, we went to Governor's Island and we explored the island. On a Saturday night, we went to the Queen's Night Market. And I might have talked about this last year, but the Queen's Night Market, it's a Queens, obviously. And there are, must be 50 to 75 different vendors. And it is just booth after booth after booth after booth, like 3-4 rows of stalls of all kinds of street food, basically. All kinds of cuisines, and I think there's a price cap of $5 per item. I believe that's what my son-in-law said. So it's not hard to just go and try a whole bunch of different things, and that was our dinner, and it was so much fun. And then on Sunday we went to church, and then went and hung out, and that night we had dinner with my son-in-law's family. We went to Hot Pot and hung out with them for a while. They are just delightful. The sweetest people. I love being with them so much. It's just very, very enjoyable. Excuse me. And let's see, we walked the High Line. We went to Chelsea Market. We did, on Tuesday, we did the Museum of Math, which who knew that was even a place, right? My daughter took us there. That was a lot of fun. Actually, more fun than I thought. And it is just a lot of, it's a very interactive, that's the word I was looking for, interactive type of museum. Like all of the exhibits are things that you do. You touch, you move, you puzzle, whatever. But everything has a mathematical twist to why it's doing what it's doing. So we were there for a couple of hours, actually. It was a lot of fun. And then that night, my daughter had to work. And so my husband and I bought tickets on a whim to Aladdin. And I had gone last year with my daughter. And so when we talked about going to a show, I'm like, well, we could go to Aladdin again. Like, I loved Aladdin. And I thought my husband would enjoy it. And he did. And we got great seats. That show, if you haven't seen it, it is so high energy. They are constantly moving on the stage. The costumes are exquisite. The choreography is phenomenal. And there are a few, there was one number in particular where there was, I want to say 4 different costume changes within the same number. Like, absolutely incredible. The guys would come out, and then the girls would come out, and the guys would go off stage. They would come out in something different. The girls would go off. They would come back in something different, like back and forth. It was wild. So that was a lot of fun. We went to the Bronx Zoo and explored that and saw all the animals. My husband loves animals, so the zoo was kind of one of his favorites. We, on Thursday, walked the Brooklyn Bridge, which is something that kind of has been on my list every year, and we just have never done it. It's actually really quite cool. It was overcast, actually a little drizzly. It kind of drizzled all day, actually. So even though it was not super early in the morning, the bridge is decently quiet. There weren't a ton of people, and I think it's because it was so drizzly. That was also the day we went to Argyle Yarns, and that night, I think that was the night we actually headed back kind of early. And just, my daughter went back to her apartment, and we just hung out in the hotel for, like, the rest. We got back around 3:30 or 4 o'clock and just hung out and chilled and watched TV and relaxed. And I got a bunch of knitting done that night. It was probably the most knitting I did while I was in the city, other than on my socks as I dragged them around. And then on Friday, we took it slow Friday because we had been moving a lot. We were getting kind of worn out. We walked through Central Park, we went to Nitty City, we got ice cream, and then we went back and we went out to my favorite Japanese barbecue restaurant. We always go. My son-in-law does a great job cooking, and Gyukaku is the name of it. I think there's multiple locations in the city, but if you are ever there, you need to look it up. It is phenomenal. And then Saturday morning, we got breakfast together, went to Macy's just for fun because we were nearby, and got on the bus at 1:15. Well, they let us on a little early. I guess it was like 1:30. The bus left at 1:45, but it took forever to get out of the city on Saturday. We started moving, and 10 minutes later, we had gone 3 blocks. Like, I literally could turn around and see the road that we pulled out of. Like, okay, well, this is how this is going to go. In spite of all that, we were only about half an hour late to Portland. So we finally pulled into our driveway at 9 p.m. So it was a very busy, very long week. Long short, though. Like, it was hard the last day. We're like, I can't believe it's over. Like, it went so fast. But it also was feeling good to come home and not have to move. And not have to think about, okay, what are we going to do? And how are we going to plan our day? Like, that's also very exhausting. One of the things that I did this year, so in the years past, I have vlogged while I've been on vacation in the city. I've done all kinds of video, put it together into a vlog, and posted that as its own video. I decided this year that I didn't feel like doing that. But what I did do is every day, I was doing reels of where I was with my sock. So I decided that I would put those all together into one, should be a fairly quick video. Honestly, I haven't done it quite yet. But it will be inserted right here, so you can kind of get a New York City view from my socks view. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It was fun, actually. It was kind of something that I decided by accident, spur of the moment. I didn't think about it, or I would have done a reel on the bus when I cast on the socks. But on Saturday when we were at Governor's Island, I was sitting there. I'm like, I should do a reel of my sock in the skyline, because you could see the New York skyline. And then it was just kind of one of those, I'm just going to keep doing reels and keep showing off my sock. And after a couple of days, that's where it landed. So it was fun, and it was fun to put together. So that is kind of my trip in a nutshell. I did the highlights each day. I think that is finally everything. If you are still here and listening, thank you so very much. Please do hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see when I post anything new. If you have any questions, do post those in the comments below. I would love to be able to answer those. I'm hoping to be able to add that as a new segment into the podcast. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Knittin Michelle, KNITTINMICHELLE. You could also send me an email. You could send me a question in the email too, if you'd rather do that as opposed to putting it in the comments. My email address is michellesfiberstudio@gmail.com. With that, oh, and I will have links down below in the show notes for all of the things that I have talked about. With that, I hope you have a fantastic week and happy knitting.